Okay, so the last talk for today is about the impact of high K and tidal effects on binary neutral star waveforms from Xisco Jimenez? No.
Xisco Jimenez.
Yeah,
it's difficult.
Almost.
I always try to confuse the terms. Even in the talks. So, well, thanks for the presentation. So, well, just to say, I was formerly a PhD student here, and now totally I changed the topic. So don't be bad, or please be bad with me because I have to learn also. So I'm going to present basically the work that I have been doing now during this year or the very recent months about post-Newtonian models related to binary neutron stars and what it could be the impact of neutrons that has been discovered or has been proposed theoretically, and that appeared yesterday in a paper on the archive. The paper that was published basically by Tiziano, Leonardo, and Paolo, who carried out all the theoretical work. So before I start, well, let me give you a very brief outline about the topics I will cover here. That are, I will review very briefly what it was, the event that all of you know, that it was the binary neutron star merger observed in summer. So then I will use some qualitative behavior, what are the impact of these high P antennas on the phase evolution of neutron stars, also some description of tidal numbers, some data analysis to end with the results. So basically why I started with this slide, because from a pure gravitational wave point of view, so even having like the loudest SNR, the event with the loudest SNR and the ground-based gravitational wave detectors, we couldn't constrain very well what is the so-called tidal number or what is the love number. So this was, I mean, very satisfactory because we could put some constraints, although all these constraints were also from a pure gravitational wave point of view, also compatible with the tidal of the loud number 0, that could be also a black hole, right? So then this was because we think or we believe that, I mean, the detector sensitivity, what is not accurate enough to capture what happens at high P enters, and we were also able to capture, let's say, the leading term, that is this lambda, which captures the tidal love number 1 and tidal love number 2, which is the electric tidal love numbers of the two binary neutron stars, right? And the question that we want to raise here is whether we can go farther. So first, why it's so difficult to detect this with the ground-based detector? That is because the tidal effects appear very late, so appear at high P order. So they become to be important after 700 Hz. That is a region where the sensitivity of the detectors is not very good. So basically, when they start to pop up, let's say, they carry out with 0, they come out with 0 SNR, right? So even the little information that we can get has to be more or less in the low frequency regime, unfortunately, right? And what is this lambda? What is this this electric tidal love number? Well, this tidal love number has this Newtonian analogy, which is basically when you have two companion masses, let's say a planet or let's say a neutron star, right? And you have some gravitational potential caused by each of the two masses, then the perturbation caused for the other companion provokes a deformation that is related at the end to some kind of number, which for simplicity here we only take, this is the quadrupolar expression, but this can be expanded in multiples. And indeed, this deformation will depend, of course, on the features of the material that you have in the interior of the neutron star. So different material will, let's say, allow the neutron star to be more or less deformed, right? But then we have to go to GR, of course, because the equations always get more complicated, right? And we know that, for instance, mass distributions create the so-called electric tidal love number that come directly from the electric sector of the equations, and that give us the usual 5pn and 6pn corrections, and that were basically all the models used for parameter estimation in the last event used this kind of were based on the electric tidal love number. However, if you go to the odd part of the equation, that is the magnetic part, you have that also current distributions, that is some coupling between the angular momentum And the tidal field also produces a different log number that is called the magnetic one, and that enters a non-negligible PN order because, I mean, for instance, Taylor has two models that were the models used for the detections also end at 6 PN order. So here now we are trying to introduce new terms that enters a not so low PN order, and we want to see what is the effect of this event at the end. Right? So basically what this paper teaches us, the paper that appeared yesterday in the literature teaches us, well, indeed they appeared two papers at the same time, but more or less they are talking about the same thing, right? It's like if I have my tidal phase, I'm talking about adding two more terms, right, that enters at 6 p.m. And then also there is another interesting term that we want to evaluate here, that is 6.5 p.m., which you can imagine that it's very weak, but it has the extra property that it comes like with a linear coupling with the spin. So that means that we are adding more complexity to the waveforms. We are adding some part on the post-Newtonian models that is coupled linear to the spin, and it is thought, and it's fairly well known that there is some degeneracy between spin and tidal effects, and this kind of terms could, I mean, help to raise degeneracy, if not in LIGO, more advanced detector, or even in 3D. So the questions that we want to add are as complicated as this one, that where here we have the 5 PN tidal terms. These are the usual electric 6 PN contributions, and here we are placing this, which goes linear also with this sigma to 2, which is the magnetic part. I have to say that this was not introduced here, but I mean these magnetic terms were accounted for. I mean, the correct restriction of this term came on last December, so all of this is very recent, and I would say that even hot. And that also, this is absolutely new, this 6.5 terms, right, that comes coupled to the spin. And this could be also some implications in NR calibrated models, right? Because NR calibrated models were calibrated to models that only were accounting for the electric part and not for the magnetic part. So, I mean, it would be nice to try to do a recalibration of all these models and see how much this coefficient changes. And of course, so this is one coefficient, this is another one. So this is basically constrained by the 5 PN, I think, and this basically also this accounts for the 6 PN part. And it would be nice to see how much this coefficient changes and whether at the end the parameter estimation changes a lot or not. Right? So, more things to say is that, I mean, I'm also adding 2 parameters extra to my parameter estimation study, which is in principle can be annoying, because if it's difficult to detect very subtle terms, adding 2 parameters it may be even more difficult. But here there are the so-called universal relations that are kind of not Hertzians, but for neutron stars, right? That are able to describe fully the space-time, but in terms of, for instance, the log number, the moment of inertia, or the quadrupole, right? And in this paper, it were found some relation between the two log number, the two quadrupolar log number, sigma and lambda. Even more, so depending on the equation of the state, depending on the type of fluid that you're considering in your neutron star, right? You have that you can consider for instance, static fluids that basically are the more used and the standard fluid used in the solution of the TOB equations. But also you have the option of assuming vorticity, free thermal motion, or in other words, irrotational fluids that have the nice feature that they predict that they have a different relation with the lambda. So here I have lambda, right? And this rule would be lambda equals lambda, of course. And this is what would happen, for instance, for a static fluid. So having exactly the same contribution that for the lambda term. So if the lambda term, I haven't said that, but the tidal deformability tends to speed up the orbit. So here we would have an extra term speeding up even more the orbit. And we have another one that is in the opposite direction that could be screening what is going on in the 6 PN terms. So what we have done basically is try to do also qualitative studies. So let's simplify everything and let's plot the phase evolution, right? So well, by doing so, right? So for instance, we have four different curves. So the first one is a Taylor F2 to 6p4 that with no magnetic terms. And we see that in the number of cycles, the difference in the number of cycles may be in the order of 10. That is more or less if you want to convert this. So in this phase, our number of cycles is 1 or 2, which is very small quantity. But what we get by adding this magnetic log number, in particular the static ones, we see that we get a better approach to what is prescribed for the NR calibrated models. I don't know if this is a feature of what kind of fluids are used in the NR simulation that calibrate these models, but in any case, this seems to be a nice match, right? And also that the prediction or the first estimate of the modification on the coefficient say that it may be varied by a factor of 0.3, which is not so small too. So then now we need some tools to try to calibrate these effects. So we can do the things very complicated, well, I can do the things in a way very complicated, but I don't like and I don't know how to do it. That is using a full Bayesian parameter estimation, use Monte Carlo chains, and putting everything and computing at the same time prediction on all the parameters, and computing base factors to say which model, for instance, is more likely to happen than the other. Or on the other hand, we can use Fisher matrix arguments that are more or less well suited for high SNR scenarios. That this is exactly the case that we want to treat, because I want to treat events compatible with tidal Q17 or A17. And this is for this Fisher matrix arguments, the value can be described by the SNR and by the match. So having a match and giving some prediction for the SNR, I can compute probability distribution for each of the configuration, right? In addition, some derivative product of these Fisher matrix arguments are the so-called distinguishability criteria, which are also some approximation or some nice tool that allows you to differentiate between different waveform models, or in other words, so given two waveform models with some given parameters, so you can compute a match, and with this given match, you can say more or less what is the minimal SNR needed to distinguish between these two parameters. But not only this, you can say that I want to distinguish these two parameters under certain credibility level, saying that if I want to distinguish two waveform models with more than one sigma, it has to be, this ratio has to be equals to 1, or if I wanted 2 sigma equals to 2, and so forth, and so forth, and where D is the dimensionality of your problem. So in this case, if you put it in the sort frame and you have the two masses, the two spins, the two lambdas, and the two sigmas, for instance, you would be dealing with 8 parameters. So then let's try to do some tests. Let's try to do some mock model that is the binary neutral star event detector in standard with the same SNR, compatible with 1.4 solar masses. I choose a lambda of 400. Why? Because like the maximum limits given by Lagrange were about saying that the lambda has to be lower than 800 at the 90% level, and also because we are seeing today that there were a paper in December, I think, that from optical counterparts there were places like lower limits for the lambda on about 400. And then with a nice feature is also is useful to remark that the SNR that was detected for this event would be converted to a factor of 3 for advanced LIGO 02 and a factor of 300 in SS Telecom. So basically, I'm assuming that if this happened once, it can happen twice, it can happen 3 times, right? So what we see here, right, in this plot, basically, is in the logarithmic scale, is the SNR needed to disentangle between 6PN models with magnetic terms and 6PN models without a magnetic terms, right? And I'm plotting this for the 3 curve for O1, which is the current configuration of LIGO, advanced LIGO 02, and SS telescope, and I'm using simulated method. I'm not taking the real data. Okay? So what we see, for instance, that this is the 800 line, and this is my injection. So indeed, I'm computing matches using exactly this line, right? And what we see is that for current prescription of the detector, we will need an SNR of about 880, sorry. This has to not to be considered like, say, super rigorously, but it's the first estimate to say that, I mean, in the current performance of the detector is going to be very difficult. Although when you go to the graded detectors as the LIGO zero return or the NSENS telescope, you get SNR that are totally feasible, because, for instance, in advanced LIGO, again, zero return, this event would have had an SNR of 100, whereas this prediction is about 70, right? And of course, this all can be seen in NSENS telescope. But another test to do is like compute systematics on your waveform model. What is this systematics? It's like, imagine that your real data is coming with the magnetic terms, but my waveform template used in the detector doesn't account for this term, right? Of course, this will produce a parameter bias, and this is what we want to quantify in this plot for the two types of fluid that we have in mind that are static or irrotational. So as you will see, since the effect is contrary one to another, one is positive and the other negative, you see that they produce different shift, right, consistent with the sign. So, for instance, let's try to very fast explain why the static is shifted to the right, and this is because the static fluid is adding a new term to the phase evolution, and I'm comparing with a waveform model that doesn't have exactly this term. So this waveform model, in order to try to capture what is missing here, will try to push the lambda up, right, in order to maximize the match. And this is why you see this displacement here. And, well, here are the 90% credible intervals, right? So, in addition, I mean, in the paper of 1708-17, it was claimed that the table of two models only prescribed with the tidal log number seem to overestimate this lambda. And we wonder, this could be just because it's not being accounted these magnetic terms. We don't know. We don't have still the sufficient statistic, because all the predictions lie between the 90% credible interval, but the situation is of course always better. If you go to advanced detector, and again, this is consistent with what we have seen before. I mean, for also LIGO zero retune, we see that the two distributions are totally out, so they don't collide in the same region. So saying that it could be that these effects can be disentangled, or even that we could try to also estimate what kind of fluid is going on the neutron star interiors, although it has a clear caveat now that is a very simplified analysis with just analyzing the lambda blend. When you put more and more parameters in your parameter estimation, of course, is when the generics start, and this cannot be so clear. But I think that it's a good starting point. So then we have the other factor, that is the linear coupling of the spin with the tidal of numbers, magnetic and electric ones, right? And I compute exactly the same. So in the right-hand side plot, I'm showing like the minimum SNR needed to detect to distinguish between a model up to 6.5 pn and a model that goes only up to 6 pn. And as in contrary that we have seen before, you see some kind of profile here that depends on the spin, and of course it's because this linear spin coupling and being infinite, this line, this goes to infinite because the 6.5 terms when you put zero spin are exactly equivalent to the 6 pn terms. Although the thing is slightly better when you go to high spin region. But if you see the Y scale here, this is logarithmic scale, this is saying that you at least need an SNR of the order of 100 to detecting something that is as high a spin as 0.8, 0.7, 0.6. So we have two problems here. So the first problem is that we need a lot of SNR, and the second problem is that astrophysical predictions doesn't predict so high spinning binaries, right? And this is translated also in this contour plot. Okay, so I have exactly the same 800 line to 100 line. So this line is crossing the contour line at SNR 82, meaning that if I would like to detect this under the current performance of LIGO or 1, I will need something as high as 82 and as high to the spin at 0.8. So nothing. Okay. So the situation again changes for 3G. So a lot of these effects that I'm talking about are very dedicated and very focused to future performance of detectors. And for 3G, the changes dramatically because the SNR needed to calculate this effect is much more reduced. So now we are talking about 140, but this is totally reachable by the incident telescope because the gain in sensitivity between the incident telescope and the current performance is about a factor of 10. So a thing that we have with 30 will have 300 in incident telescope. And also because it more or less crosses one of the two, and this is some artifacts coming from the data, but more or less crosses a line where the spins are not so high, where the spins can be on the order of 0.1 or so. So much more likely astrophysically. Okay. So then I do the same analysis. So I now inject some waveform and I try to compute the parameter bias produced by considering a model or the other. And we consistently with the previous plot, what we see is that now we have practically no way of disentangle between a static and irrotational fluids on the LIGO 01, although the situation is again consistent with what we've seen before. For instance, ET, although we have some merger of the two distribution, we see that the two peaks are slightly different, so giving some chances also to have to detect these tidal spin couplings at 6.5 p.m. So just to conclude, just to say that, I mean, 6 p.m. might have some non-negligible impact on the type of events of GW0817. For sure, this is going to be detected if it's real in the next generation detectors, and it may be also detected for the zero tune sensitivity of LIGO. It's also nice because we are, let's say, allowing the models to disentangle between two different effects now that are the type of fluid that I have in my neutron star equations, in my neutron star interiors. So also the point of that the calibration of NR calibrated models, how these can change the coefficients, and since LIGO is using these kind of models, I mean, it would be nice to recalibrate these and use for parameter estimation, but using completely NCMC codes or whatever. And that's to end that promising era of GW astronomy is coming. So we have to push as far as possible away from models to be as much accurate as possible. So you can start to read that.
Okay, thanks a lot. So there's room for questions.
In your last slide where you showed the improvement, if I understood correctly, the effect you're measuring happens very late.
Yeah.
Did you gain anything if you just studied some late part of the waveform, so that the part not contained?
No, you have to also always account for the very early frequency, because in that part the SNR gain is basically zero. So even the little information that you have from the tidal effect doesn't seem to come, or in my opinion, doesn't come from the high frequency regime. It also you have an important content coming from the low frequency regime. I mean, the fraction of these effects is smaller, but the gain of sensitivity is much bigger than this. And this is why you need to account for everything.
I have one question to slide 14.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just missed something.
Yeah.
So on the right plot, y plus I equal to 0. It's not going to infinity.
Yeah, because I cut the plot.
Okay.
Because it's inverted, right?
Okay.
But this plot is doing, I mean, it's going to infinity there. Yeah.
No,
Plotting an infinity is not nice.
Okay, so some more questions? If not, then thank you again.